Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Open court, please.
Oyez, silence is commanded for the justices of the Supreme Court of Kentucky while they are sitting. All those having pleas to make or causes to prosecute, draw nigh, and ye shall be heard. This court is now in session. God save the Commonwealth, and God save this honorable court.
You may be seated. So on behalf of the Commonwealth, the Supreme Court of Kentucky, I welcome all of you to the celebration of the rule of law. In 1957, the president of the American Bar Association, Charles Ryan, envisioned a national day to celebrate our legal system. The following year, President Dwight Eisenhower made that vision a reality, proclaiming Law Day as a day of national dedication to our great heritage of liberty, justice, and equality under the law. Law Day in America was in sharp contrast to the May Day celebrations of the military might displayed in the Soviet Union. Now, more than 65 years later, the United States of America and our legal system are strong and vibrant. Each year, Law Day provides a new opportunity to expand awareness of our legal system and the judicial system and its impact on our lives. It offers us a chance to reflect upon our nation's constitutional heritage and to appreciate the vital contributions on an informed and active citizenry to make our constitutional democracy. The theme for Law Day 2023 is Cornerstones of Democracy, Civics, Civility, and Collaboration. The trend in our country towards combative polarization has had the effect of corroding confidence in our institutions, particularly our courts and our legal profession. This is illustrated by recent polls that indicate confidence in our judiciary is declining. As lawyers and judges, we have the ability to respond to these troubling statistics by focusing on the 3 C's: civics, civility, and collaboration. It is important that we support and promote civics education in our schools and our communities and encourage citizens to engage with each other and with their government civilly and collaboratively. Lawyers should also lead by example by always engaging civilly and professionally with clients, opposing counsel, and the courts. We cannot allow cynicism to drown out the value of law and democracy as a guarantor of liberty and justice. On Law Day and throughout the year, I encourage all of you as new lawyers to promote civil discourse in our communities and elevate confidence in our courts and our profession. So next, I would like to introduce the members of our court: Justice Shay Nickel from Paducah, Justice Kelly Thompson from Bowling Green, Justice Angela McCormick Bissick from Louisville, Justice Michelle Keller from Fort Wright, and Justice Robert B. Conley from Greenock. And our other colleague is Justice Debbie Lambert, and she is not here because of an emergency in her family. And we have the chair of our Board of Bar Examiners, the Honorable Dustin Meek, right there. So I now have the great pleasure to introduce Chief Justice Emeritus John Minton Jr. as our speaker today. Chief Justice Minton was elected to the Supreme Court in 2006 and re-elected to another 8-year term in 2014. He was elected 3 times by his colleagues to serve as Chief Justice, a title he held for 14 and a half years. During his administration, the Kentucky court system was transformed in many areas. He made it a priority to invest in the people who operate the courts and in court technology so that it cut costs and delivered better service. His comprehensive overhaul of court technology brought e-filing to every Kentucky county. He addressed lagging judicial branch compensation by improving the salary structure for court employees and increasing pay for judges and circuit court clerks. And we do appreciate that last part. During his tenure, the Supreme Court has adopted the state's first uniform family court rules and juvenile court rules. He led efforts to draft Kentucky's first statewide judicial redistricting plan in decades and worked with the executive and legislative branches to carry out penal code and juvenile justice reform. In 2016-17, he served as president of the Conference of Chief Justices and chairs of the National Center for State Court Board of Directors. He was appointed to the State Justice Institute Board of Directors in 2016 and currently serves as the board chair. He was previously in private practice and a judge for the Kentucky Court of Appeals and the Warren Circuit Court. He holds degrees from Western Kentucky University and the University of Kentucky College of Law. Chief?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chief Justice and members of the court. May it please the court. Honored guests of the court, and most importantly, those of you who are sitting out there who are about to join the legal profession finally after long last, and your families and friends who are here to support you. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for allowing me to return to the beloved Capitol to address all of you on this very important occasion. As the Chief Justice warned, I am the speaker for the occasion. And Justice Keller, I consulted with our former colleague, Justice Cunningham, who did this a year or two ago. You did it last year. He said, John, just remember that they won't remember a thing you say. But I did feel compelled, having had this invitation to make a speech. I realize that I am the last thing standing between you and your law license, so I'll keep it brief as I can. But I do want to pay due respect on this day of days when we celebrate the rule of law in our society and to highlight the role of lawyers and the contributions that they make to maintaining the health of our democratic republic. And I begin my remarks today, as I often do, with the historic backdrop as context for National Law Day theme that emphasizes, as the chief said, civics, civility, and collaboration, because our very existence as a nation was founded, really, on collaboration and compromise. So I begin the story on a rainy afternoon in mid-May of 1787. The city of Philadelphia greeted the arrival of George Washington, then the most famous man in America. And he made his way to the city as a member of the Virginia delegation to the Federal Convention that was called to rescue America's floundering national government. The final product of that convention, as we now know, of course, was the draft of the federal Constitution, the written charter that actually created our country. David O. Stewart, himself a lawyer and author, recently published a biography of Washington that vividly described the excitement of that day in Philadelphia. A cavalry escort met Washington at the Schuylkill River. Cannons thundered 13 rounds. The city's bells tolled. Crowds of citizens gathered along the way and cheered as he made his way. And the local newspaper announced the coming of this good and great man. Stewart recounts that Washington immediately paid an hour-long call at the home of the venerable Dr. Benjamin Franklin, the man who at age 81 was old enough to run for president, nearly rivaled Washington for celebrity among Americans. This was an incredible moment in history. America's two most famous men cooperating to map out what would become the most extraordinary experiment in self-government that the world has ever known. And in the following days, other delegates trickled into the city. Their travel was delayed by raw weather and bad roads. Finally, on May the 25th, 1787, 11 days late, the convention mustered a quorum in the main chamber of the Pennsylvania State House, now known, of course, as Independence Hall. Dirt was scattered on the cobblestone streets outside so that the noise wouldn't interrupt the deliberation inside. And by prearrangement, Robert Morris rose to nominate Washington as president of the convention. Washington, of course, expressed his embarrassment with his ceremonial formality. his embarrassment at his lack of qualification to preside over such an august body, which included some of the finest minds in all of the continent. The convention then met for 6 days a week for the next 4 months with spirited and sometimes angry debate. Philadelphia that summer was insufferably hot and humid, as reported. And thanks to a cold winter and wet spring, the delegates shared the city with swarms of black flies that lingered throughout the entire summer. Not surprising for the era, the delegates favored fashion over function. Their dress made conditions even worse that hot summer. Being gentlemen of the day, of course, they wore waistcoats and jackets, which they refused to take off. The New Englanders suffered in their woolen attire. The Southerners fared a little bit better in their linen suits. And because the doors to the State House were closed and the windows were closed and shuttered to ensure the secrecy of the proceedings, the odors in that room must have been pungent. A total of 55 men from 12 of the 13 states, representing the collective wisdom of the Confederated States, proceeded then to create the written framework for 3 branches of government. And the Constitution that emerged from that sweaty summer in Philadelphia, like so much of the work of our history, was the product of compromise and conciliation. On September 17, 1787, the final document was signed and the convention adjourned at 4 o'clock, and the delegates decamped to the city tavern to have supper. Washington went back to his room after supper to meditate on momentous accomplishments of the convention. The delegates had reconciled, quote, various and opposite interests, Washington later wrote, and subdued their local prejudices. Quote, in a work of so intricate and difficult a nature, Washington concluded, the wonder was that anything could have been produced with unanimity. And in his cover letter transmitting the new Constitution to the Confederated Congress in New York, Washington expressed a mixture of hesitation and hope for the future of our country. He wrote, the Constitution which we now present is the result of a spirit of amity and of that mutual deference and concession which the peculiarity of our political situation rendered indispensable. It may promote the lasting welfare of the country so dear to us all, and to secure her freedom and happiness is our most ardent wish. Dr. Franklin, on leaving the Constitutional Convention, supposedly told a curious passerby that the framers had produced a republic, if you can keep it. A republic, Franklin said, if you can keep it. So what does it take to keep a republic? In the nearly 2.5 centuries since its creation, we Americans have tended to think that we keep our republic by simply relying on its constitutional structure, separated powers, federalism, checks and balances. But we as students of the law know that constitutional structure, like every structure, isn't self-sustaining. To keep our republic requires vigilance, requires action on the part of its citizens. And as students of history, we see that each generation has the obligation to maintain our nation's institutions and repair any damage that was allowed or created by its predecessors. The 2023 theme of Law Day, as the Chief Justice told us, focuses on the tools we need to keep our republic in good repair. Civics, civility, and collaboration, cornerstones for rebuilding trust in our institutions of government, respect for one another, and a willingness to collaborate to address the challenges that our nation faces. The task of maintaining our republic begins with civic education, so that Americans know how their government works and thus what to expect from their constitutional institutions. In his 2019 year-end report of the judiciary, Chief Justice Roberts decried the failure of our education system to teach civics education. In our age, when social media can instantly spread rumor and false information on a grand scale, the Chief Justice wrote, "The public's need to understand our government and the protections it provides is more vital." Each generation, the Chief Justice wrote, has an obligation to pass on to the next not only a fully functioning government responsive to the needs of the people, but also the tools they need to understand and improve it. 39 states mandate civics education in high school, a year-long or semester-long course that includes topics such as the explanation or comparison of democracy, instruction on the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, exploration of the need for public participation in government, information on state and local voting rules, media literacy, and the role and influence of media on society. A recent study noted that Kentucky is one of 11 states where no civic education is required for high school graduation. And that fact seems incongruous with the requirement imposed by the General Assembly mandating that beginning in 2018, every student must pass a 100-question civics test to graduate from a public high school and obtain a diploma. But even in absence of this statewide mandate to add civics to its required curriculum, we do applaud the public school systems in our communities, like the one where I live, for offering age-appropriate civics in grade school from K through 8 at appropriate age level. The system requires 3 social studies classes for high school students, each which has a civics component. And I commend the Kentucky Chamber Foundation for its sponsorship in 2023 of the National Civic Bee competitions for middle school students as an effort to emphasize the importance of civics literacy, so that as important to the economic stability and welfare of the Commonwealth. But civic education alone, though necessary, isn't enough, says Professor Adam J. White, enough to save our republic. For civic education to take root and produce its desired fruit, White says the citizens themselves must have certain qualities of self-restraint, goodwill, and moderation. These virtues are necessary following the example of the public spiritedness shown by our framers in 1787, the collaboration that's needed today to navigate our highly polarized political climate. According to White, what's needed for this collaboration is a recognition of civic virtue, or Republican virtue, he calls it. Civic virtue is not morality writ large, but something more limited and practical. As he describes it, it means it's the ability to curb one's passion and moderate one's opinions to approach a larger consensus that will ensure domestic tranquility. We need to think of public spiritedness as a form of self-expression. We tend to think of it that way, an exercise in self-righteousness, but the framers thought of this as a form of self-control, a form of governing oneself. And while Professor White makes the difficult point that in a republic, there is such a thing as public interest apart from and perhaps at odds with one's own personal interest. And thus it requires responsible citizens to restrain themselves in the slow, collaborative workings of constitutional and civic institutions, and even in their interactions with one another. For most of us, this sense of public virtue, as Professor White describes it, is an abstract concept seemingly impossible to replicate on the national scene, but I have seen civic virtue at work without violating any traditional confidence among my colleagues of the Supreme Court here. I will tell you that these justices seated in front of you convene in conference room directly below this room every month. And in that conference room, they disagree violently, vigorously, as reflected in their judicial opinions. And they can do this as a routine part of their work because they also work extra hard to grow and maintain a sense of community and collegiality among themselves. That's hard work to build community despite divergent political philosophies, but it's the secret sauce for their work together. So I applaud my former colleagues for the work they do as a part of a collegial court. It's an example for all of us as lawyers and judges across the Commonwealth. Allowing this sense of civic virtue to permeate our professional dealings is a high calling for us as lawyers. As professionals, we lawyers address disputes between parties we represent without creating among ourselves controversy. And a failure to do so, a failure to avoid these personal conflicts really undermines the adversary system and erodes public confidence in the judicial system. If we as lawyers approach our work as professionals, subordinating our own personal interests to the service of our client, then we enhance the effectiveness of the judicial system. We improve the public's perception of us as lawyers, and we actually increase our own personal satisfaction in the work that we do. Now, the critical element, finally, to civic virtue is civility. This is a time, we all know, when polls confirm our belief that public trust and confidence in our government institutions, federal, state, local, the judicial branch included, are all in precipitous decline. Too many people are actually calling for an end to civility. Too many people believe that more anger is needed because the stakes are too high and the ends justify the means. In a series of essays, Justice Neil Gorsuch has urged that a government of and by the people, for it to work, the people themselves need to talk to one another respectfully, debate and compromise, and strive to live together more tolerantly. And while the essential goodness of the American people is a profound reservoir of strength, Gorsuch writes, it cannot be taken for granted. It needs constant tending. In an era when fractured politics, the blessings of freedoms come with the duty of having to listen to and tolerate other points of view, because democracy depends upon our willingness, each one of us, to hear and respect even those with whom we disagree. For us in the legal profession, we know that civility is essential for professionalism, and professionalism is at the core of a successful lawyer. The very best lawyers can and should be courteous, remain respectful, and act with integrity at all times in order to achieve success and uphold the time-honored traditions of the legal profession. And we do so, when we do so, we do our part. We do our part to repair our damaged republic. So we as justices, judges, and lawyers can do much to keep our republic and to support the efforts to teach civics education abroad, and as we model a spirit of collaboration and civility in all our personal and professional dealings. On this point, as in many things, the legal profession is positioned to set a strong example. But as Professor White concludes, for our country, to relearn the Republican virtue that our framers saw as necessary to maintain the Republic, we need heroic efforts by parents and teachers and clergy and coaches and statesmen. Benjamin Franklin's challenge will require all our efforts if we are to keep our republic. I want to thank you again and congratulate you for your accomplishment today. You're about to enter the most noble profession there is, and we look forward to having you. Thank you very much.
So the chief y'all may be seated. The chief gets the Law Day Award 2023. Thank you very much. We've now reached the point in our program that most of these new lawyers have been waiting for. So at this time, we're happy to recognize the chair of the Board of Bar Examiners, the Honorable Dustin Meek, for a motion.
May it please the court, justices of the Supreme Court, and honored guests. I am Dustin Meek, and I serve as chair of the Kentucky Board of Bar Examiners, and I am a proud member of the Kentucky Bar Association. It is my honor to move the court that the individuals appearing before you here today be admitted to the office of attorney and counselor at law and be allowed to appear as such before all courts in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. In support of this motion, I represent that all individuals have successfully completed their academic training. They have been found to be of good moral character by the Character and Fitness Committee, and they have successfully completed examination by the Kentucky Board of Bar Examiners. These individuals are well qualified to assume their office as attorney at law and become members of the Kentucky Bar Association and officers of the Supreme Court of Kentucky.
Ms. Meek, quick question. Have they paid their fees?
Yes, Chief Justice.
Okay. So it will now be my pleasure to administer the constitutional oath of office. It's basically two parts. The second part originated in the 1850 Constitution. It's the anti-dueling part. And typically there are smiles, snickers, maybe a few laughs. I would reflect, or I would ask that you not do that, but instead reflect on the purpose is that we no longer submit our disputes to fields of honor. We trust in the court system to do the best that the court systems can do. So with that, I will ask each of our new lawyers to stand up. Raise your right hand. Do each of you swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky so long as you continue as citizens thereof, and that you will faithfully execute to the best of your ability the office of attorney at law according to law? And do you further solemnly swear or affirm since the adoption of the present Constitution, you being a citizen of this state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within this state nor out of it, nor have you sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have you acted as second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offending, so help you God? Yes. Thank you. Congratulations. So Ms. Stevens, I come down there. Okay. So at this point, we'll turn the program over a little bit to Ms. Meek and Ms. Stevens to present the certificates.
Hashem Adel Al-Salman. Alexis Morgan Bardenero. Benjamin Robert Boffman. Michael Joseph Beatty. Cassandra Robinson Blair. Hunter Allen Branham. Elizabeth Ann Cahill. Patrick Andrew Chambers. Victoria Abigail Cintron. Dalton Blake Klein. Taylor Brianna Cochran. Kendra Alicia Kraft. Sterling T. Creighton. De'Aaron J. Dixon. Elijah Bo Isert. Erica Lindsay Fields. James Michael Green Jr. Jalen Rose Hewitt. Mark David Irwin. Shelby Ann Johnson. Hogan David Jones. Henna Ott Khan. Rex Kilburn III. Thomas Toland Lacey. Kira D. Lodge. Maria Macaluso. Ariel Devon March. Pamela Renee Masters. Sherry Maximos. Shelby Jane Ponder McClure. Emily Ann Mead. Anne Marie Murphy. Jasmiran Carr Nanda. Courtney Rose Noyes. Devin Mackenzie Perry. Harley Chase Piercy. Gabrielle Genesis Marie Pirtle. Ryan Michael Quinton. Robert Emmett Lee Rainey. Anna Jean Reynolds. Yisrael Mordecai Safiq. Courtney Neal Salyer. James Edward Sasko. Megan Ann Cerna. Scott Marshall Schaefer. Michaela Elaine Sharp. David A. Shear III. William Pierce Smallwood. Charles Michael Zott Jr. Brianna Shanice Taylor. Savannah Grace Toll. Drury Christian Walters. Catherine Ann Wheatley. Kyle Matthew Wilson.
So in the fall, when we do this ceremony, we do it individually by district. And one thing I do with my district is I ask my new lawyers to turn around and you clap for the people that supported and got you here. So do that now. Okay, In closing, I again would recognize our Speaker, Chief Justice Emeritus John D. Minton Jr. I also remind you of our obligation to make our system of justice available to all citizens by contributing a portion of your knowledge and skill pro bono and participating in community and civic causes, and also your state and local bar associations. So again, I congratulate you and your families and wish you well in the future. A reception in your honor is being hosted by the Kentucky Bar Association Young Lawyers Division on the second floor of the Capitol. I encourage you and your guests to attend. We will now adjourn court.
All rise. The Supreme Court of Kentucky now stands adjourned, subject to the call of the Chief Justice.
Great job.